Hello, I'm John Paul and I'm here at Rimmer Brothers today to fit two new front airbag and front struts to this 2010 Range Rover L322 TD V8. This is the suspension item we're going to fit today. Now this is the airbag with the full strut, all as one complete unit. As you can see, here is the airbag without any air in it. Now, why we're going to fit this is because the Range Rovers, when the airbag starts leaking, the front suspension goes down overnight, or sometimes you can hear the compressor being activated more than it would normally because it's struggling to keep the front suspension, or the rear suspension for that matter, pumped up because one of the airbags is perished away and starting to leak. So these are the common problems, you know, with the L322 when the suspension starts to fail. So say we're going to fit the full strut, but you can just fit the single airbag unit, so which is fairly easy to unbolt. Once we've shown you how to get the strut off, you'll be able to see what we will do as well. Is actually we'll remove the airbag from the strut so you can see where the O-rings sit and how it reassembles afterwards. I'm just going to take the sensor out the top of the shock absorber first. So with a T30 Torx bit, 2 screws, and then you just lift the metal cap, and then the plug inside is just two little buttons. You push one each side just to release the catch, and then you can unclip that. Just put that out of the way, and then we'll go underneath, take the wheel off, and then carry on from there. We can see I've taken the wheel off. I'm not showing you how to take the wheel off because, to be fair, if you don't know how to take the wheel off, you should stop now. Don't go any further. So the wheel's off. Here's the gear air strut that we can see here. So we've got to remove top anti-roll bar link. I'll show you in a second. The two 22mm nuts and bolts that hold the bottom of the strut. You've got your brake pipe, rubber grommet, and your ABS sensor rubber grommet. On the other side, you've also got your pad wear sensor rubber grommet as well. So once you can remove those, but I'll show you that in a second. A couple of things just to be careful of. Now the suspension level sensor that bolts to the bottom arm, just whilst you've got it jacked up and you're going to remove in the strut, you've got the suspension down at its full extent. So you just want to make sure that the level sensor doesn't get broken or damaged in any way, because they do sometimes seize up on the pins, and then when you move them, they'll snap the plastic actual sensor arm. So you just want to be careful that doesn't get damaged. Now I'm just going to quickly spray the nuts and bolts that I'm going to be taking off, and then I'm going to remove the plastic inner wheel arch liner. This will allow us to gain access to when we drop the strut, we can get to the air pipe without kinking it. You can wiggle it out without taking the cover off, but it's much easier if the cover's off, and then we can show you how to take the pipe off. The inner wheel arch liner has to be removed, as I said earlier. Now then, there's 5 clips underneath there, which you need to pull out the centre pin first, and then you can remove the clip. There are 3 10mm spanner size nuts, one here, and one here. Now they all need to be removed, and then there's several 8mm bolts around there, and then 3 underneath the floor here. So once we've got those all removed, we can then take the liner out. Once you've lowered the liner, you can see here there's an item that's bolted through to the line, and that is the outside temperature sensor. So you just have to, same as the other screws, there's a little centre screw. You can undo the centre screw. Once that comes out, you'll pull the little tags out and you can remove that out of the way. I just like to place an axle stand underneath the hub, so once I've undone all the strut and everything, it doesn't drop down any further and damage that levelling valve link. So first job I'm going to do now is take off the anti-roll bar link nut. So this is the genuine one. So I've got an 18mm spanner on the back, and then I'll just use my windy gun, take the nut off. Now, just once you've got the anti-roll bar link off, it's just advisable just to check the rubber boots to make sure that they're not split in any way or damaged or perished in any way, because if they are, now's the time to change them, because a split boot is an MOT fail nowadays, so it's just worth noting that. Now I'm just going to remove the 2 wiring grommets. So you've got the ABS sensor grommets, and these are just into the strut bracket on the side. So you just have to grab hold of them and wiggle them to get them out quite tight, so just not to damage them. So you can see the little cutout in the grommet fits into the arm there off the side of the strut. So once that one's removed, and the brake pipe one removed as well. So you can see the cutout in the grommet in the rubber grommet, so you can remove that from that bracket and just peel them both back out the way so they're not going to get in our way when we drop the strut down. Now I'm going to remove the two mounting bolts that mount the strut to the stub axle. So the 22mm socket and spanner, lock it on there. What you may well have to do once the nut's off is put your socket on the other side just to spin it, because they do get a little bit tight in there in the stub axle. So once they're both removed, and you may well even have to get a copper drift just to tap them through. Like I said, these bolts do get very tight in there, so if you can put your gun on the other side, and if you spin it, just to free things off, put a bit of lube on the bolt as well, and then you can get a copper mallet or a copper drift and we can knock that one through. We can see how rusty these bolts are, so before we replace them, we'll clean them up on the wire wheel and we'll copper grease them so they're nice and well lubricated before we put them back in. Now I'm just going to put an eel bar in between the stub axle and the strut, just to make sure that's nice and free. And then we're going to go upstairs and I'll remove the 3 mounting bolts from the top, and then we'll drop the shock absorber onto the floor. There's 3 18mm nuts on the top that mounts the strut through the strut top mount there. So we'll just have taken 2 of them off. So as you take the other one off, you either get an assistant or hold the strut yourself underneath so it doesn't drop down, because you've still got the air pipe connected to the top. So you just need to release that. I'll just put that out of the way, and then I'll just lower it down a little bit, and then we'll send the ram back up so we can show you exactly what we're doing underneath. See how the strut is just sat on top of the drive shaft, so we just have to wiggle it out of the way, go around the ABS sensor wire, then we can drop it onto the ramp. We can see here's the air pipe that feeds the airbag, so we need to remove that now, so we can just unclip it from its clip so you give us a bit more pipe space, and then we'll get our 12mm spanner and just undo the air pipe. Now I'll show you in a second, but you do get a new union if you require it. So put the strut down there. We'll just inspect that union, see what the O-ring's like. If it's all in good order, you can either refit that or you can remove that and fit the new union that comes in the kit with the new shock absorber. This is great. You can see exactly now. You can see the bag's perished, and on them perished parts, you can see an actual cut in the bag. Obviously, that's why the airbag won't build up its air pressure anymore, and obviously affects the suspension on the whole vehicle. So yeah, that's absolutely perfect. They're not always as clear cut as that. They're normally, they can be just perished around the airbag, and it actually is just seeping through the perished rubber. But this one is very clear to see that is split. You can see the top mount. It comes with 3 nuts, so you'll need to remove all 3 of those. Now, where the air pipe goes in, it can only go in one place. So the way they've done that, they've put this little rubber locating peg, so it only fits in one way. You'll see on the top strut where that hole is, and so you obviously need to. We'll put the pipe on, and then we'll refit it in exactly the same place using the new nuts. I'm just going to sit the strut in a safe position so we can refit the air pipe, and then once we've refitted the air pipe, we'll tighten it up. Now, because it's got a plastic top mount, some of them are metal, this is a plastic top mount, so when you tighten that nut up, it really doesn't want to be very tight. I mean, literally, you want to be probably like 2 Newton meters, because if you do it too tight, it'll split the plastic, split the plastic top, and then obviously it won't build up its air, and it's quite an expensive task then. Okay, so I'm just going to lift the strut up from underneath. It's obviously easier with 2 people. Okay. On. Great, so that's one of the nuts on. We'll put the other 2 nuts on to keep everything in place. So what we've done here, we've lifted the strut back into place. You can see the little locator tag that goes into the hole in the strut mount top. So that means that everything's in the correct place. We'll leave these nuts loose for now, and then we'll go back underneath. We'll reassemble everything underneath, and then the last thing we'll do is tighten these nuts up. So I've cleaned up the bolts and copper greased them. Now, just to line everything up, I'll just get an eel bar, and a bit in your way here, but I'll just get it into the lower bolt, and then I can lift it into place nice and easily, and then I can pop the top bolt in. So now it's in place, we can put the bottom one after copper grease in it, and then tighten the nuts up. So we've replaced the 2 bolts. Let's just tighten both of those up. And then we'll replace our ABS wire back into the mount on the bracket on the side of the strut. Now there's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. There's on the front side of the strut, the ABS wire clamps to it. We're using a little clip like this. Now unfortunately, very often you'll never get them out of the strut, so you'll need a pair of those to do both sides. And they literally just push into the hole, and then the ABS wire goes through there, and as you clip them shut, there's just a little V thing there, and it just clips on top of itself. So once the ABS wire is clipped up nice and securely, we'll replace the brake pipe grommet into its mount, just like that, and then we'll move on to the anti-roll bar link. So I'm just going to replace the anti-roll bar link, so pop it back through its mount, just start the nut by hand, put the 18mm spanner on there, and then tighten the nut. So that's that done. The wires are in place, the two mounting bolts are in place, so now it's going to be a case of replacing the inner wheel arch liner. I'm just going to refit the air sensor before I put the wheel arch liner in. I mean, this, to be fair, this is the worst part of the whole job, to be honest. So once we've got the air temp sensor mounted in place, it's a case of just feeding the liner back in the best you can, and obviously then remounting it onto its nuts and bolts. Liner's all in place, the strut's all on, anti-roll bar link, both the wires, that's fine. So I'm now going to replace the wheel, torque the wheel nuts down to 140 Newton meters, then we'll let it down and we'll show you the finishing off touches at the top. Now we're just going to finish off by tightening the top strut mounts. Replace the shock absorber wire. Let's just clip in the right position, that's that in. And then we'll just replace the cover. Goes in like that. Get our two screws. Just worth mentioning actually, the wire to the top of the shock absorber does tend to break, so just while you're there, I mean, I would just inspect it, but you'll know if there's a problem because the light will have come on your dashboard already. So just tighten up the little Torx bits. Not too tight. Push the rubber grommet back in. And then that's it, the top's done now. So what we'll do now is we'll go in the car, we'll start the engine up. Now sometimes when the suspensions fail like this, you will get some lights on the dashboard alerting you of the problem. Sometimes they'll clear and the suspension will pump up all on its own. Sometimes you've got to plug them in and you know, with a diagnostic machine and just go through the procedure there, reset in. But we'll get the car started in a second and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we're just going to start the car up now to see if the suspension sorts itself out or whether we're going to have to plug it in with a diagnostic machine. Let's just give it a few seconds. I mean, it is saying there's a suspension fault on the dash. Just select the high mode, and here we go. The suspension's pumping up now. So I'll put it into the high mode. See if it sorts itself out. Another thing worth noting is once you've had the front suspension to pieces, it's really a great idea to get the four-wheel alignment done to make sure that the tracking is absolutely bang on, because the new struts might not be exactly the same as the old ones, and also there is a little bit of movement in the bolts when you bolt it together, so it's a good option to take it and get the four-wheel alignment checked. And that's it, the suspension's pumped up now, so we're all good to go. If we weren't going to change the shock absorber and we're just going to change the airbag, this is the procedure. There's a little locating tag at the bottom with a little metal clip, so you just need to, you'll probably break it getting it off because you can't get them off normally, so you just, the little metal clip, just ping it off so it's out of the way and gone, and discard that. And then 24mm, either a socket on a windy gun if you want to zip that off, or an 8mm Allen key down the centre and a 24mm spanner. And then you can crack that nut off and take the nut off. and then you push the airbag up from the top, and then it should just push in from the top. Now you have to be really careful with the top if you're going to use any hammer to tap it down with, because it's got the sensor ring on the top, so you have to be really careful with that. So I'll just show you in a second what I would do if it doesn't come off very easily. So I'm going to remove the bottom clip, remove the nut, and then I'll show you how to remove the airbag. And we can just slide the airbag off. You can see that's where it gets tight, just where it's gone rusty on the top. You can also see this shock absorber is leaking slightly as well, so really at this stage, even if you just planned not to fit a shock absorber, now would be a good time to fit one. So what you've got here, you've got the, I can't get them out of there at the moment, I'll show you on the new bag. So this is the base washer for the bump stop, which is inside the strut, which you have to remove that because you'll fit a new one. And then the sequence of washers at the bottom. In the new kit, just here, we get all the items we're going to need to replace it. So we get the new bump stop, we get the top rubber mount, we get the lower bump stop mount, and also this is a modified kit actually. So before the airbag's fitted, so you fit the bump stop washer on, then the bump stop, and then that metal washer sits on there, and it's just a buffer for the top of the bump stop. But before we'll do all that, we'll replace these washers with the new ones exactly in that sequence. So you've got the hard rubber ones, the O-ring, hard rubber O-ring, and then obviously exactly in that sequence with the new ones. The new ones are white and these are orange, but they are the same item. So we've got the old washers off and discarded. We'll just clean down the struts up, and then it's a case of replacing them one at a time. So you've got the hard, and then that one as well. So when they all slide down to the bottom, and then we can replace the new bump stop and washers and top metal mount for the bump stop, and then we can put the airbag back on, making sure that the locator tag at the bottom goes the appropriate hole in the bottom that we can then put the new clip on.